Imagine this. You're driving across a bridge you've crossed 1,000 times. Same morning traffic, same radio playing, same commute. But today, something feels off. You glance to the side and notice rust bleeding through the concrete like open wounds. Thin cracks spread like spiderwebs. Chunks of concrete are missing, like something has been eating it from the inside. And then the thought hits you like a punch. This bridge is barely 40 years old. So why does it look like it's dying? Now, rewind your imagination 2,000 years. Picture a giant stone dome rising above ancient Rome. No steel, no rebar, no modern machinery. Built by hand, built by people who didn't have electricity, cranes, laser measurements, or computer models. Yet that dome, the Pantheon, still stands today. Perfect, untouched, defying earthquakes, storms, invasions, and the collapse of an entire empire. For over 1,300 years, it was the largest dome on Earth. Even now, it remains the largest unreinforced concrete dome humanity has ever built. So let me ask you something uncomfortable. Something every engineer secretly fears. How did people with zero modern technology build structures that outlive ours by more than 1,000 years? Why does Roman concrete shrug off 2 millennia, while ours starts falling apart before we even pay off the mortgage? Did they know something we don't? Or worse, did we make a catastrophic mistake? Because the truth is brutal. Our modern concrete is born with a built-in death sentence, a self-destruct mechanism hiding quietly inside every bridge, every skyscraper, every stadium. And it's not because we're stupid, it's because we prioritized speed, profit, and convenience over durability. We engineered our world to fail, and we did it on purpose. But here comes the plot twist. 2,000 years ago, the Romans solved this problem. Permanently, they created a concrete that doesn't just resist damage, it fights back, it heals, it gets stronger with age, yes, stronger. While ours breaks, theirs regenerates, and the science behind it is so wild, so counterintuitive, that for decades, modern researchers refused to believe it. In the next few minutes, we're pulling the curtain back. We're diving into the chemistry, the secrets, and the forgotten genius of a civilization that built things for eternity. You're going to learn why modern concrete cracks, why Roman concrete doesn't, and why some ancient structures sitting in salt water for 2,000 years are literally harder today than the day they were built. And by the end, you won't just understand the difference, you'll question everything around you. Every overpass, every parking garage, every building you walk into. Because once you realize how easily our infrastructure fails, and how effortlessly the Romans avoided every mistake we keep making, you'll see our modern world in a completely different light. This isn't just history. This is a warning and a roadmap. To understand why our world is quietly crumbling beneath us, we need to start with a problem that almost no one sees, but every engineer fears. We live in the age of concrete. It's everywhere. It's the second most used substance on Earth after water. Your home, your highway, your school, your office, your stadium. Your world is wrapped in concrete. And yet, the material we trust the most has a secret weakness baked deep into its DNA. Modern concrete is unbelievably strong when you push down on it, what engineers call compressive strength. That's why it holds skyscrapers upright and supports bridges that carry millions of cars. But the moment you try to bend it or pull it, it becomes fragile, brittle, vulnerable. Concrete is terrible at handling tension. So a simple idea became the hero of the 19th century: reinforced concrete. Take a weak, brittle material and hide a skeleton of steel inside it. Steel handles the pulling forces. Concrete handles the crushing forces. A perfect marriage. A super material. At least, That's what we believed. But inside this miracle invention is a catastrophic flaw. A flaw so fundamental that the moment you understand it, everything about our modern infrastructure suddenly makes horrifying sense. Concrete is not solid, not really. It's a hardened sponge filled with microscopic pores and pathways. And over time, tiny cracks form. They always do, it's inevitable. And each crack is a doorway. Rainwater slips in, oxygen slips in, salt from winter roads slips in, and all of them are searching for one thing, the hidden steel. Because when water and oxygen reach the rebar, a chemical process begins. Rust, corrosion. But here's the part no one tells you. When steel rusts, it doesn't just weaken, it expands. Rust can grow to 5 to 10 times the volume of the original steel. Imagine 1 cubic inch of steel trying to inflate into 10. That pressure is monstrous. 3 to 4 megapascals. Enough force to split open the concrete from the inside like an internal explosion. Concrete has fantastic compressive strength, but its tensile strength, the ability to resist being pulled apart, is only about 10% of that. So inside every concrete structure, the perfect storm begins. Expanding rust starts pushing outward against the concrete's weakest point. The first tiny chip falls off. A small piece spalls. The rebar becomes exposed. Suddenly, corrosion accelerates. More rust, more pressure, more cracking, more spalling. And the moment this feedback loop starts, the structure is doomed. There's no coming back. The rebar you installed to strengthen the concrete becomes the very mechanism that destroys it. Let that sink in. We designed our world with a built-in failure mechanism. Not by accident, but because nobody in the 19th century realized the time bomb they were embedding into the architecture of the modern world. Every bridge, every parking garage, every high-rise, every tunnel. They all share the same ticking clock. Engineers know this. They call it the rebar problem. Politicians call it deferred maintenance. And the public doesn't call it anything, because almost nobody realizes how vulnerable the world around them truly is. But here's the twist that makes this story even wilder. The Romans had none of these problems. No rebar, no steel, no corrosion, and their concrete doesn't weaken with time. It matures, it evolves, it gets stronger. Meanwhile, ours is in a constant state of decline from the day it cures. You see the contrast? We build for the next fiscal quarter. They built for the next millennium. And yet, for some reason, we still cling to the belief that modern concrete is the pinnacle of construction. But if that's true, then answer this. Why does modern coastal concrete crumble in 20-30 years? While Roman harbor walls have survived 2,000 years of violent sea waves and salty water. Something doesn't add up. Something big. So, if modern concrete is fundamentally flawed, the next question becomes unavoidable. What exactly did the Romans know that we don't? What ancient formula allowed their structures to resist the very forces that destroy ours? To find the answer, we must go back, way back, to the harbors, bathhouses, and temples of the ancient world. Because buried in those ancient stones is a lost technology so advanced, it makes our modern concrete look primitive by comparison. And once we uncover it, everything you think you know about building materials is going to change. To uncover the secret of Rome's immortal concrete, we have to think like detectives. The clues aren't written in scrolls or carved into stone tablets. They're hidden inside the material itself, inside a handful of ancient structures that have no right to still exist. Our first stop, the Pantheon. A dome so impossibly perfect that even today, architects stare at it in disbelief. By modern engineering logic, it shouldn't be alive. It should have collapsed centuries ago. Yet it hasn't, and that makes it the first piece of the puzzle. But the real shock is waiting on the coast of Italy. In the ancient harbor of Caesarea, Roman engineers built massive concrete piers directly into violent seawater. Structures made of modern concrete in that same environment last maybe 20-30 years before the ocean tears them apart. But the Roman ones, they're still there 2,000 years later, and they're not just surviving, they're stronger today than the day they were built. That discovery shattered everything scientists thought they knew about materials, because seawater is the enemy of modern concrete. Salt accelerates corrosion, waves widen cracks, the rebar rusts, the concrete crumbles. But Roman concrete behaves differently. Something inside it reacts when seawater enters, and instead of decaying, it evolves. For decades, researchers assumed the Romans simply had high-quality volcanic ash called pozzolana. That was part of the story, but not enough to explain the impossible longevity or the bizarre chemical transformations happening inside the structures. There was another clue. A strange anomaly that every scientist noticed but no one could explain. Scattered throughout Roman concrete were tiny bright white chunks, lime clasts. For years, experts dismissed them as a mixing mistake, sloppy workmanship. Ancient Romans didn't mix thoroughly, they said, but that explanation never sat right with Admir Masick, a material scientist at MIT. His question was simple. If the Romans were sophisticated enough to build the Pantheon, why would they be sloppy with the most important ingredient in their empire, concrete? Why would every sample contain the same mistake? Why would Rome's greatest builders leave behind defects in structures meant to last? So Masick and his team did something no one had done. They zoomed in. Not with a magnifying glass, but with advanced imaging, scanning every grain of 2,000-year-old concrete down to the nanoscale. And what they found changed material science forever. Those white defects, they weren't mistakes. They were engineered, on purpose. Roman builders weren't using slaked lime, the safe, premixed version of lime that modern construction relies on. They were using quicklime, a more reactive, more dangerous form of calcium oxide. And they weren't mixing it gently. They were cooking it inside the concrete itself, a process now known as hot mixing. This method created temperatures of 200 degrees to 250 degrees inside the concrete, an extreme chemical environment modern concrete never experiences. And in that inferno, something extraordinary happened. Quicklime reacted violently, forming brittle, ultra-reactive lime clasts trapped throughout the material. These clasts weren't flaws, they were seeds. Millions of microscopic capsules of potential energy waiting to be activated. But why? Why embed tiny pockets of quicklime inside a massive structure? Because the Romans understood something we are only rediscovering now. Concrete doesn't need to resist damage, it needs to repair it. Hot mixing didn't just create lime clasts, it created a network of chemical time bombs that would only go off when cracks formed. When water entered, when trouble arrived. Meanwhile, the volcanic ash Rome used wasn't random. They transported it, sometimes hundreds of miles, from a region near Naples called Puteoli. That ash had a unique chemical fingerprint rich in aluminum silicates. When combined with lime and water, it produced minerals that do not form in modern concrete. Minerals that lock together like tiny armor plates, growing denser with age, especially in seawater. This wasn't luck, this wasn't guesswork, this was engineering. The Romans didn't just discover concrete, they perfected it, through centuries of observing, testing, refining, and learning. And those lime clasts, those bright white flecks that scientists thought were evidence of sloppiness, they're actually the signature of brilliance. The proof that Roman builders didn't make flawed material. They made smart material. a material designed to survive, a material designed to heal, a material designed for eternity. But how exactly does this self-repair magic work? And can it really heal cracks in days, not centuries? To answer that, we have to zoom in even closer, inside the crack itself, where the real miracle happens. Now that we know the Romans weren't sloppy, now that we understand those strange white flecks were intentional, it's time to reveal the most shocking part of this entire story. Because those lime clasts weren't just ingredients. They weren't filler. They weren't imperfections. They were something far more advanced. Something so intelligent that modern engineers are still trying to wrap their heads around it. They were the immune system of the concrete. To see it in action, imagine you could shrink yourself down to the size of a grain of sand and walk inside a Roman wall. Everything feels dense and ancient, a tight labyrinth of stone, ash, lime, and minerals fused together over centuries. At first, it seems unbreakable, but nothing made by humans stays perfect forever. Heat expands, cold contracts, the earth shifts, and one day, a tiny crack forms, barely visible, a fracture thinner than a human hair. In modern concrete, this is the moment everything begins to die. But in Roman concrete, this is the moment everything comes to life. Rainwater slips into the hairline crack, drifting deeper and deeper until it touches one of those bright white lime clasts, a tiny pocket of highly reactive quicklime just waiting for this moment. And the instant water touches it, the clast snaps awake like a sleeping volcano. It dissolves rapidly, releasing a surge of calcium-rich solution that spills into the crack like liquid armor. And then the real transformation begins. That calcium-rich water doesn't just sit there. It crystallizes, it hardens, it becomes limestone again, the same stone mountains are made of. But here's the incredible part. It doesn't just fill the crack. It reacts with the volcanic ash around it to form new minerals. Minerals like aluminum tobermorite, a rare, incredibly durable crystalline structure that modern laboratories can barely make, even with controlled heat and pressure. So, instead of a weak patch, the crack becomes a reinforced scar, often stronger than the original material around it. Think about that. Modern concrete cracks, dies. Roman concrete cracks, evolves. And if this sounds too mythical to be real, MIT tested it. They made modern concrete, cracked it, ran water over it, and the crack stayed open. Then they made Roman-style hot-mixed concrete, cracked it, ran water over it, and in just 2 weeks, the crack sealed shut completely on its own. No machines, no repair crews, no maintenance. Just chemistry doing exactly what Roman engineers designed it to do 2,000 years ago. This is not a repair. This is regeneration. This is the material equivalent of skin healing after a cut. And here's the genius no one gives the Romans enough credit for. They expected their concrete to crack. They understood nature. They understood stress. They understood that nothing stays perfect. Instead of fighting the inevitable, they embraced it and built a material that turns damage into strength. Let me say that again because it flips modern engineering on its head. The Romans didn't try to stop cracks. They designed a material that uses cracks as fuel to make itself stronger. Meanwhile, we design concrete to resist damage, and the moment damage appears, everything gets worse. The countdown to failure begins. Our structures weaken, their structures wake up. You can almost feel the philosophical difference. We built for speed, they built for survival. And now that we finally understand how this ancient immune system works, we're left with a brutal, unavoidable question. If Roman concrete could heal itself, why aren't we using it today? Why did we build an entire civilization out of a material designed to die? The answer lies in the uncomfortable truth about the modern construction industry, an industry where durability is rarely the goal, and planned obsolescence is far more profitable than building things that last. Now that we've seen how Roman concrete heals itself, it's time to look at the uncomfortable mirror modern society has been avoiding. Because the flaw in our infrastructure isn't just chemical, it's philosophical. It's systemic. It's a design failure baked into the very foundation of our world, and we've all been living inside that failure like it's normal. Modern concrete relies on steel rebar, steel that must stay dry, steel that must stay sealed inside concrete that was never meant to be airtight. And the moment water or salt breaks through, the moment the seal fails, corrosion begins. The concrete loses its protective alkalinity, and the steel starts rusting like it's sitting at the bottom of the ocean. And once it starts, there is no stopping it. Every tiny rust particle expands. Every expansion pushes the concrete outward. Every push opens the crack wider. The entire structure becomes a slow-motion bomb detonating over decades. Crack, hogos, death sentence. Crack, hauvogos, accelerating decay. Crack, hauvombo, money, money, and more money. Our concrete doesn't heal, doesn't fight back. It doesn't get stronger with time. It just gets older and weaker and more expensive. But the real tragedy? We did this to ourselves, deliberately. Modern concrete cures fast. In 28 days, it's ready. It reaches its nominal strength. Contractors love it. Developers love it. Deadlines love it. But nature hates it. Concrete that cures fast has more internal stress, more micro cracks, more vulnerabilities. It's like rushing a bone to heal. It may look solid, but deep inside, it's brittle. The Romans took months, years even. Their concrete cured slowly, patiently. They were building for people who hadn't been born yet, for futures they would never see. They didn't cut corners because they weren't rushing toward quarterly profits or government budgets or project deadlines. They built for longevity. We build for convenience. And now we're paying the price. Just in the United States, we spend over $125 billion every single year just maintaining and patching concrete infrastructure. Bridges, roads, parking structures, tunnels, stadiums, water systems. The American Society of Civil Engineers estimates we'll need $4.5 trillion just to bring our current infrastructure to acceptable condition over the next decade. Not pristine, not world-class, just not collapsing. Meanwhile, Roman harbor walls, hammered by 2,000 years of saltwater, currents, storms, and tectonic shifts, are still standing like it's no big deal. But here's the cost modern society never talks about: the environmental price. Cement production, just one ingredient in our concrete, releases 8% of the world's CO2. If cement were a country, it would be the third largest polluter on Earth, right behind China and the United States. Every time we rebuild, patch, replace, demolish, or reconstruct, we restart the carbon clock. We redo the emissions. We burn more fossil fuel. We manufacture more cement. We repeat the same cycle again and again. Rome built once. We rebuild every 40-50 years. Do the math. That's 40 times more emissions for the same function. This isn't just bad engineering. It's ecological insanity. And yet, the most painful truth is this: the modern construction industry has no incentive to fix the problem. Long-lasting concrete doesn't produce repeat business. Self-healing materials don't require maintenance contracts. Structures that last centuries don't generate profit. A bridge that needs repairs every 20 years is far more lucrative than one that lasts 500. Planned obsolescence isn't just for phones and appliances. It's baked into our roads, our buildings, our entire environment. We didn't lose Roman technology. We ignored it because it wasn't profitable. And that brings us to the final, looming question. If we know how to fix this, why haven't we done it yet? If we have the science, why aren't our cities using it? If the Romans could build for eternity, why are we building for replacement? The answer, and the future, lies in a new generation of materials that combine ancient wisdom with breakthroughs so radical they could change everything about how we build the world. For centuries, Roman concrete was treated like a charming mystery, something archaeologists admired but modern engineers shrugged at. Cute, impressive, but irrelevant. A relic of a world long gone, but not anymore. Because now the race is on. A global effort to reverse engineer a 2,000-year-old miracle material and bring it into a world that desperately needs it. Admir Masik's team, the same group that uncovered the truth about lime clasts, has already launched a company to bring Roman-inspired, self-healing concrete into modern construction. And this isn't about replacing everything we know. It's about upgrading it, enhancing it, giving our brittle, vulnerable infrastructure a kind of superpower it's never had, the ability to fix itself before it fails. Imagine bridges that last 300 years, tunnels that don't need sealing every decade, seawalls that grow stronger every time a storm hits them, buildings that don't crumble from hidden corrosion. A world where infrastructure doesn't age like a ticking time bomb, but like a living organism. And the best part? The Roman method doesn't require 2,700 Tedagda furnaces like modern Portland cement. It doesn't demand insane amounts of heat or energy. Their process used lower temperatures, roughly 2/3 of what we use today, which means less carbon, less pollution, less destruction baked into our construction. If our modern structures lasted 10 times longer, we'd need a fraction of the cement we produce, a fraction of the emissions, a fraction of the cost. But the revolution doesn't stop with the Romans. Scientists are creating concrete laced with living bacteria. Yes, living organisms, dormant spores that come alive when water seeps into a crack. They eat calcium lactate and produce limestone, sealing the fracture like a living scab. Other researchers are engineering aggregates filled with healing compounds that burst only when the concrete cracks, deploying chemical medics exactly when needed. Then there's conductive concrete, concrete that feels. Sensors woven into its structure allow it to detect micro-cracks, stress, and strain by measuring changes in electrical resistance. It gives concrete a nervous system, a voice, the ability to say, "I'm failing, fix me before it's too late." But innovation comes with a price. Bacterial concrete costs 3 to 5 times more upfront. Synthetic pozzolans aren't cheap, and the industry moves slowly. Construction companies cling to old habits because the current system, for all its failures, is profitable. Short-lived structures mean constant repair contracts, endless maintenance, predictable revenue. Durability isn't profitable. Longevity doesn't make money. Self-healing concrete threatens an entire business model, and that's why we're standing at a crossroads that feels almost philosophical. The Romans built for eternity. We build for replacement. They engineered materials that matured with time. We engineer materials that self-destruct with time. They invested in the future. We invest in the next quarter. But here's the twist. Now, for the first time in centuries, we have a choice. We can keep going, building a disposable civilization where everything crumbles and everything must be rebuilt. Or we can learn from the past. We can take the ancient wisdom that kept the Pantheon standing for 2,000 years and use it to build a future that finally makes sense. Because the truth is simple. We don't need brand new miracles. We don't need alien technology. We just need to stop ignoring the genius of the people who solved this problem 2 millennia ago. Roman concrete wasn't magic. It was smarter. And now that we finally understand it, we have the chance, maybe the last chance, to stop building a world that decays and start building one that endures. The question is, will we choose the path of disposable infrastructure, or will we choose to build for eternity?